If you watch some of my videos on my channel, you could probably tell that I really like post-apocalyptic shooters or something close to it, and if you haven't, you should really consider hitting that subscribe button to One of my favorite games in that category, and honestly in gaming as a whole, is Metro Exodus. It's the final game in the franchise and improves on all the aspects from the previous games and is the ultimate Metro game. But before going any further in the video, let's talk about the title of the game, Exodus. Exodus means that it's a mass departure of people, and already from the title alone we can tell that this game won't exactly be like the previous ones and will have a different goal in mind compared to the other ones. The main menu screen in Exodus is also really important and cool, as it's the standard one from the previous games in the beginning, but changes as the game progresses further. We haven't even booted up the game and yet so many things are changing for the better. Exodus takes place 1 year after Last Light, where Artyom is already married to Anna and now resides with the Spartans in the Metro yet again after the D6 ambush from the last game. Artyom, having the strange visions from the last game, thinks back about the old days on the surface and how clean the air was and how they were meant to live on the surface and not in the Metro like some rats. Nuking the Dark Ones and fighting off the threat from the last game, there isn't much to do here in the Metro anymore, and probably is a huge factor why Artyom is so intrigued to try to find some life outside the Metro, to dream big. The game starts with Artyom being on the surface trying to receive a signal, but there is nothing, so he goes back to the Metro and giving us a glimpse of what to expect from the game. He gets ambushed by creatures but is quickly saved by the Spartans from the last few games and taken to the medical bay, where we learn from the doctor that this isn't Artyom's first time on the surface, as he's been trying for months to find a signal that he supposedly heard one time. The doctor tells Artyom that he can't keep going out on the surface as he's taking too much radiation damage and the blood he's receiving could be used for other people as well. He gives a not so subtle hint on what's to come next into the game, with as if there aren't any more people to give him blood, he won't make it. Walking away from the doctor's office, we can see the status Artyom has on the people down in the Metro, with a kid thinking Artyom is doing the right thing by trying to find life outside the Metro, but we also see the consequences of those actions as the mother feels her son is being poisoned by the ideas and is unable to put him to sleep.
Artyom, stop putting delusions into his head. I don't want him going crazy like you.
Getting out of the office, the Spartan meet us and it's so cool and wholesome just seeing them all greet Artyom and being so happy he's alive, and Anna being like really worried about him. It works in the game's favor that Artyom is a silent protagonist, such as in the first act we see that only a week later he's out again on the surface trying to find a signal, showing us instead of telling us how determined Artyom is to find it. Seeing Anna with Artyom on the surface is just showing us how much she actually loves him just by being there, despite of what she said the week before about not wanting him to go out on the surface again. It's something I had an issue with in the last games and even here to some extent, but they really do make it work here, as most of the cutscenes and dialogue are fully fleshed out and works in the way of showing instead of telling. Getting no signal, we get introduced to the Metro world yet again, and the game shows us that we're back in this world we all know and love, to bring us back into the atmosphere of the first two games. Trying to get back to the Metro, we actually spot a train going somewhere, and just when we're about to follow it, we get picked up by our friends, the Spartans, and yeah, they weren't really our friends, but a part of the Order of Hansa. They have already picked up a mom and son trying to get into Moscow to meet their family, confirming Artyom's game theory that there actually is life outside the Metro, but before they can take us anywhere, they want to execute the mom and son, and being the hero Sigma male Chad that Artyom is, he rushes in to help only to get shot and left behind, leaving Anna behind with the Hansa. Somehow surviving, we get to the outpost where they took Anna, and we meet a new character into the Metro franchise, Yermak, who's the train's engineer that we saw earlier, but he's not there voluntarily. He realizes that it's us Anna has been talking about, and learning this, he wants to escape with us, taking him and Anna by taking the train. Getting to the command center, we reunite with Anna and take the guards hostage, as we realize there was actually the badge that some of the Spartans gave us that actually saved our lives. Interrogating the guards, we realize that Moscow is receiving signals from all over the world, America, India, Asia, and most importantly we get information that the war is still going on, but we don't get much more information as we need to knock out the guard and skedaddle out of there. Sneaking through the guards and getting to the train, we escape, only to get captured yet again, but by our people this time. The Hansa guards tell Miller that he's a traitor now because he helped Artyom and they all need to be executed without a trial, so being the good guy Miller is, he tosses them out of the train, but not before the Hansa can catch up later on with their train. Only real option we have now is planting a bomb in the engine of their train and then quickly jumping back to ours. So it's so good seeing a couple embrace like fully. You can see how worried Anna was about Artyom and now how happy he is to see her. And being able to escape, Miller lets us know more about what the guard was talking about earlier in the outpost. He knew the war was still going on, but he only found out recently. Moscow and the Order found the best option would be to play dead and initiated a shield protocol where they would have jammers all across the city to prevent contact with the outside world. But there is hope, as Miller tells us that there is a safety protocol called the Ark where they are actually the higher ups of the government building a safe haven for people once the war actually dies down. And yeah, that's totally legit and definitely not a trap, so we go there. Miller is by far the best character in the game in my opinion. He's more fleshed out and really stands strongly as his own character in this game, but I just can't talk about him just yet. You might be wondering, why does Miller have 2 fucking metal legs? And it's because he lost both of them back in last light because he was crushed by my metal log and lost both legs. Also another great moment in the game where everyone is just celebrating and having a drink, having a laugh just by having hope about the Ark. They're just having hope about something good happening and they're celebrating it. It's a really good moment. Having a destination in mind and a home for now, the Aurora with departure, and the best thing about the game for me is being able to go outside the train and just sit there and smoke a cigarette. Nothing really happens, you're just watching the world and enjoying it. Being able to talk to your crew and just chill around it, it just makes it so good. Having the train as a home base is really smart and good as it is mobile and makes for some really comfortable moments, like when you're smoking a cigarette or just sitting down and talking to one of your companions. What I love is just like the cigarettes is not wrapped in cigarette paper, it's just wrapped in like a book paper, like a page from a book. It's really good. It's also symbolic having the train, as the developers said themselves, as it's almost a journey where it builds up momentum and it keeps going until then it just rapidly gains speed. So if you watch my control video where I talk about the black box bug, where it's a black hole coming out of nowhere and devouring everything, yeah, apparently it's in this game as well. I'm starting to think it might be something on my end. Being on the train, we can walk around like I mentioned and talk to the different characters, or rather they talk to us because Artyom can't really speak. They bring up really interesting conversations throughout the game, as in the first act where you can hear Sam and the Idiot talking about why they can't bring the other people from the metro here onto the fresh air. And Idiot is right, despite his name, they still need to find shelter for them, provide for them with food and take care of them. It's not as simple as going back and telling everyone to come with them, as they've been living on the metro for years and probably would just ignore what they said, and the few who would listen would probably not be able to get out of there because of the other clans. The funny part is that a guy named Idiot is giving them reality checks and speaking facts to them. This might differ from person to person, but there is a reason this dialogue is in place, and it's because the developers tried something new with the train format. Originally they wanted the Aurora being a transforming train with a lot of people on it, and depending on their needs would change drastically throughout the game. But they decided to go with something else, focus on the quality of the characters instead of having many people without having too much development. This works massively towards the game, as some of the Spartans weren't too unique in the last games that didn't have a lot of dialogue compared to Exodus. This game is more of a personal journey with your own misfit family, trying to find a suitable place to live, not trying to save the world or anything. On our journey to the Ark, we get a small roadblock as there are bandits holding up the tracks and fuck up our engine, so we need to stop for a while and find something to fix it with. Remember when I said the game took us back to the world we knew and something familiar? Wrong. This game is a massive change from the Metro franchise. Gameplay wise, it's really similar to the other games with a few tweaks, like being able to craft ammo and weapons remotely now because of the backpack, and my favorite feature is back, wiping the gas mask. The biggest change is the setting. Sure, this location looks familiar to the other places in the game, but later on we discover more and more quote-unquote unique places. This was almost necessary for the game, as I feel like I could go along with being in the metro yet again for this game, but having these new areas with kind of an open world aspect to them really works in the game's favor. I have a map now where it says what you need to do and highlights some important details for. I like it, but I much prefer the trying to find your own way in the older games. Stopping at these train tracks, we learned that there is a church nearby filled with cultists that defy electricity and captured a woman and a daughter. There's a bridge further up that needs to be lowered before we can go any further, and a dock. Getting to the church, we get bamboozled by the cultists and trapped, but the woman and daughter help us, and in return we take them back to the Aurora. Back at the Aurora, Miller says that he saw someone on a crane nearby, so going to the crane we see that someone is actually living there and is more willing to help us with our train, as he seems to be a mechanic of sorts. But heading Heading back, Miller informs us that Anna went missing somewhere near us, and we find her in a bunker filled with radioactive barrels, where she tells us that she only came into this bunker because she heard Artyom call out for her. This aspect is really important for later on into the story, but also narratively, as it seems Anna is the one hearing voices and seeing things, much as Artyom was in the last game. It's really interesting seeing Artyom being sort of the Anna of the group, being the normal one, as he was always seen as a weird kid. Also, there are these human looking creatures in this segment, and they're fucking terrifying. Even in daylight, the way they move and sound, it's just really amazing and scary. It's also interesting as well is how the NPCs react to the world and Artyom as a whole. Well, most of the time. Just take a look at these guys, for example. I holstered my gun and turned off my flashlight, and they actually reacted to it, and when I turn it on they get really angry since they hate electricity.
We have a lot to do. After all,
Having the gang all united now, we convince Miller to take the woman and daughter alongside, attaching some extra cars from a shipping dock on the train, but we have some options now. We can decide if we want to go back to the dock during the day or night. Yes, this game has a night and day cycle where you can sleep in the safe houses across the different regions, just craft, drink, or listen to music if you want. Since I mentioned crafting briefly in this chapter, I can talk about it. It's really good and changes the game pace and how you approach it. You can collect metal and chemicals from different areas you explore. You can craft medkits, upgrade your armor, or even craft bullets. The currency from the last game is gone, and instead we have this. Playing on the hardest difficulty is really good, as you die in 1 to 2 hits, and finding these materials is really crucial. Going to decide for yourself if you want extra materials from dismantling your medkit, or if you decide to craft more bullets. It really creates a more personalized experience in a linear game. You can either stealth it like me or just go gun blazing, but that's not really the best option on the hardest difficulty. What's also so interesting about the game is that the two playstyles really work well together. If you want another COD clone with shooting mechanics, you're gonna have a blast with Exodus, and if you're a stealth fanatic like me, you're also gonna love it. It really made the two playstyles so different, yet so fun to play no matter what you prefer. Now I'm not talking more about the story, but bear with me as I talk a little bit about the side quests. In Volga we can get a guitar for Stefan, get a teddy bear for the little girl, and explore the area to help the fanatics who are captured by the bandits. These quests are almost in every chapter of the game, and I really love them as they make you more immersed into the world and help you build a stronger relationships with the rest of the crew and other people in the chapter. What's also really important is talking to the different characters across the levels, as most of the time they'll tell you some important location where you can find loot, or they might request an item or a favor from you. You have different methods of traveling later on into the chapters, but here we have a boat and it's fine. I hate water levels in general in games, but here it's fine. The only bad thing about the boat is that these creatures spit at you while you're in the boat, and it really ruins the momentum of exploring the areas by boat, because you can't really do anything. By the time you drop the rows, then you can't really shoot at them. So for some reason Artyom can swim, which is fine, but I don't get how he drowns when you fall into a half a meter puddle and he can't get up from it. I'm guessing he's just like hyperventilating from the hypothermia. Having a break here from Crest, the guy who lived on the crane, we proceed further into the terminal that has night vision goggles in it, and well, if you help the fanatic, that is. Being here, we're here to get a cart that Crest stash, and getting it, we go to the train yard and attach another cart to the Aurora. Well, before we can go any further, we still need to lower the bridge to go anywhere, so we need to take the bandits' boat in order to get there, and I got another bug as I clearly took the boat silently, mind you, and my bitch wife Anna was mad at me for not doing it silently. Like, bro, I didn't even kill a single one of them. I just knocked them all out. They didn't even fucking spot me.
Shame we couldn't do it quietly.
so
Getting on the bridge and going to the control room, we meet the leader of the cultists, and he's surprisingly cooperative with us as we never killed any of his men, and being able to cross there, we go to the Ark now. After getting the extra cart, you can have a home of sorts on the Aurora where you can turn on the radio and even look in your diary. I love this as you learn more about the characters you play with and the different creatures you encounter. And Artyom's drawings are really fucking good, and yet again with these character moments on the Aurora where Artyom and Anna actually have a relationship and just talk about life and the future, that makes this game so much closer and builds more of an atmosphere and a closer relationship to these characters. What helps build this is almost every time Artyom and Anna meet, they always hug and show just how much they care about each other. Heading out of Volga, we speak with Miller where he shows us a recording of his conversation with the Ark people, and yeah, you can tell they aren't really who they seem to be with the way they respond to the questions and the questions they ask to Miller.
But I do understand you. We are doing fine. Do
But yeah, no one is the wiser, so we head out there. Miller, Anna and Artyom go there to meet the government, and we finally made it, meeting the government. But yeah, they sent cannibals after us, and everyone here is actually a cannibal and are really excited for us to get captured. Waking up, we see a doctor figure for these cannibals, and you can just see how upset Miller is, and as soon as the doctor takes Anna away, he just goes full berserk and goes fucking nuts with his 2 metal legs. You can feel and see the anger he has as he was baited by them to think that they're the government, and to his ignorance, his daughter is in danger now.
Shitty nursing home, and you're sucking down on your jello night after night for the rest of your life. You think of me.
This segment is really good as you kill all these cannibals, and me being me, just fucking furious at these scumbags, just wanted to kill everybody to help Miller and Anna and the Spartans. What I also like about this era is just Exodus as a whole is making its own way with something new and having these new areas, like having the Aurora as a focus, but still taking us back to the metro, like here with the bunker is almost an exact replica of the D6 bunker from last light. Killing almost everyone at the bunker, we find Anna with the doctor, and he has something to say about Anna's cough, but before he can finish his sentence, Anna kills him off right on the spot. We reunite with the rest of the crew and we skedaddle the fuck out of there and regroup to talk over the next move with the crew. And again, this is an amazing moment from Miller as he realizes his mistake and feels the anger as there is no escape for him and no clear answers on what to do. But all hope is not lost as the idiot picked up some maps from the cannibals highlighting areas that showed them as radiation free areas around Russians, and the closest one is Cyprian, so that's our next destination. Here is where Exodus finally shows its true colors with a more light color palette in the desert. The chapter before in the games were always in the snow and during a bad weather, but now it's sunny and hot. It's a different scenery and it's really good. Being here we see a car, and it's really funny to me that the crew is really surprised for seeing a car, and yeah, they're right to do so since they only had like tank cars in Moscow, and I just see this minivan running around. But of course we can actually drive the car and make good use of it, and which I really appreciate as the area is relatively huge, much like Volga, and yeah, maybe Starfield should take some notes and maybe add some land vehicles into their game.
Why did you not optimize this game for PC?
This part is that you can actually run over enemies in the car, so that's something. I think you might have noticed how far we're into the video and I've only talked about the second area of the game, and it's because Exodus also takes a different approach to the chapter and area structure as a whole. Instead of having small chapter with many areas, they focus on the big areas where you spend most of your time in it, and I think it's for the better. I spend so much time in Volga just exploring everything, gathering resources and learning about the area, and I can't say I would have liked it if it was really tiny or short and split into multiple chapters. Take your own time with each area, and it's something I really appreciate as you aren't rushed to do anything compared to the other games. There you had to wait until you got to a station to even do anything, but here you're free to go back to your home at any time and do whatever you feel like. There actually is a slave cult here in Cyprian, and our first goal is to make contact with a woman who's holed up in a tower and knows where the map is, as her mom was working there before the war. Meeting her and going to the bunker with her, we encounter a similar enemy I covered in my Control and Alan Wake video, where you have these spiders that are scared of the light, and this is pretty cool and something I like. Getting the map from the bunker, we actually see Gil's mom, the girl from the tower, where she's holding a picture of herself and her daughter, and going back up we give it to her and she's really appreciative of it.
Thank you, Artyom.
One of the best guns in the game is easily the Taiga rifle, as you can craft easily ammo for it and it's a one-shot kill in the head, even on the hardest difficulty. I never really liked this gun in the previous game, but here in Exodus, surprisingly it turned out to be one of my favorite guns since it's really reliable, and if you don't do damage, well, it's practically your fault because you didn't pump up that bad boy. But by far my favorite gun in the entire franchise is the fucking revolver. Just slap a suppressor and a sniper stock on it, oh boy, I'll fucking kill an entire camp of bandits with that. What I hate most about Cyprian is that the fucking humanoid creatures are back and they blend in with the environment so well that you practically get jump scared every second since you can't tell where they are or where they're gonna jump from. I played Metro Exodus first on the PS5, and it's something I really recommend, as the haptic feedback from the controller and the noises it makes you really immersed, like when you need to switch your filter or when you're pumping up your flashlight generator. So I thought maybe I can connect my PS5 controller into my PC and have the same thing. Nope, instead it acts like a Wii remote looking everywhere I turn my controller into. There's probably some way to fix it, but I just decided to leave it and just play with a keyboard and mouse. So getting the map back to the crew, we hear that there's some Baron controlling things and being the leader of the slaves, and for the love of God, you can't tell me it doesn't sound like an average Redditor user.
some traveling gang on a train invading our territory. This is unusual, since as far as I remember, we did a pretty good job of teaching the neighbors that actions like this end up costing them.
Getting the map back to Miller, it isn't looking great for the crew, as most of them are dying from dehydration because there's no water and they can't move the train because they're out of fuel. So our next goal is trying to find some water and fuel for the train. Just one small part. It seems like for the most part they realized that the morality system in the previous games was bad and tweaked it to make it more immersive and easy to tell what you can do and can't do. But what I don't understand is that there's a bandit on the brink of death inside a cave that tells us specifically that it hurts so much being alive, and the kind Artyom I decided to kill him to end his suffering and bring him some peace as he was about to die either way. But what happens? I lose morality instead. Yeah, there's still some sprinkles of the old morality system here. Even though the map is just a desert, it still looks good. It kind of reminds me of the Mad Max vibe, I guess, with like the raiders having these minivans, this desert buggies and whatever. Exploring the area, we learned from Anna that was scouting ahead that there are some slaves on the ship and a lot of outposts in the desert. Releasing the slaves and capturing the outposts, we drop off the map to Miller and have a new task at hand to getting a water tank with Damir from an outpost nearby, as almost every Spartan is dead from the heat and there is no water, so we need to bring some. Going to the outpost and getting the water tank, we escape, but not before passing out ourselves from the heat, and when we wake up we get ambushed by the raiders. This segment just really shows how coordinated the Spartans are, as Miller instantly says where everybody needs to go and not to go to cover as much ground as possible. It's small things like this that builds up the games for me, at showing us the characters operate and how well trained they are. Having no other option now that we were ambushed, we have a final objective in mind, getting the fuel tanker from the main base of the raiders. But before getting there, we meet a character, the Baron, or so it seems. Is it the real Baron or the double? He says that the guy talking to us is a double, but if you shoot near him he exposes himself as a double. It's really weird but cool seeing that there is a power struggle here even in the desert. One interesting thing that I saw but it didn't happen to me is that there is a secret side mission on this chapter where a raider approaches you as you wake up. I didn't get it, but hey, it's still cool that they do subtle side mission like this where it's time limited. There's also a really cool Easter egg in this chapter, as if you find a bong in this level, if you smoke it, a dark one will appear and then just disappear. Getting to the main base of the raiders, the Baron welcomes us and wants to negotiate with us about the fuel tank we want from him. He briefly explains his history and tries to convince us that what he is necessary for the slaves, because without him they would falter and starve. He says he wants us to give up Gül, the girl from the tower, and we can pass without any problems, but before we can do anything she pops out and helps us attack the Baron. I do like that we don't get an option to turn Gül in, but it would have been funny seeing how it would play out if we did turn her in, like if the characters would hate us or if Damir would like shoot us or be really upset at us. Damir joins up and we storm his room where Anna shoots him in the head, and before we can exchange any words with Gül, she thanks us for the help and let us go. Damir is also really thankful to Artyom for saving the slaves and not killing them, and that he won't forget this. Now back on the train, yet again we go forth to a new location where there's supposed to be less radiation. We have again yet another wholesome moment with Artyom and Anna just talking to each other and her opening up why Miller is the way he is and how her mother died so many years ago. Miller was even a harder guy back then. He would drink heavily and rarely be with his family, so one day Anna's mother drank poison and killed herself. Since that day, Miller has not been the same man, as he quit drinking and never left Anna alone again. Anna wonders what makes Miller happy. Is there even anything that makes him happy out there, and keep this line in mind for later. Going further to the train, we get my favorite moment of the game, where everyone is just celebrating Katya's, the girl from Volga, and Stefan's marriage, where they really cherish these small moments and learn that they finally might be able to have a location to call home without any radiation. But the moment is quickly ruined by Anna, as she's really sick and has been coughing throughout the game and finally reaches her breaking point. Anna will die as her lungs are filled with toxic gas from the bunker, and before that the cannibal doctor trying to warn us about it, but she killed him. It's a really good moment, as it goes from a wholesome moment to a horror movie in just a split second because of something that happened. Now we have a new objective of trying to cure Anna, and we need to scout out this place before heading out there, as everyone is unsure of what Anna even has. It's also really wholesome hearing all the guys defend Artyom, and with Miller accusing him of everything.
This is getting old. As soon as something happens, it's always Artyom's fault, even when he had nothing to do with it. That's just his fate.
Talking to Miller, who's surprisingly not mad at Artyom, comes up with a plan to go to the current location, and if that doesn't improve Anna's health, we'll go to Katya's home village, since she said there might be some medicine for her from before the war.
Then it's decided.
Remember how I said Cyprian was where Exodus shows its true colors? Well, take it up to the extreme, as this is by far the best area in the entire game and even in games as a whole. Taiga is really beautiful and the highlight of the game, as even the developers showed this location at the E3 trailer back in the day, and you can't really blame them, as it's really beautiful and hard not to just walk around and take in this scenery. So beautiful seeing this decrepit wood area still brimming with life and being so colorful and being filled with life, even with deer, rabbits and whatnot. The developers' goal was to show how beautiful a destroyed world can be, and it's something that they really nailed there. I feel Volga and Cyprian was really beautiful, but Taiga takes it up to a whole new level. And this works because we've only seen the metro, we've only seen the desert, we've only seen like a partial open area, but Taiga brings something familiar to us. We know how the woods look like, but they don't know it, and it's so refreshing to see. The sun also shines through here a lot, even though it can blind you from time to time. It might be hard seeing how this is even a game, as I'm talking about every area pretty quickly, and compared to the games before it might just seem shorter, but I couldn't disagree more. Like I said, areas are much bigger now and everybody can take their own time with them, as you aren't really pressed to do everything quickly, rather the opposite, as all the characters advise you to loot the areas and try to find supplies for the journey. Well, gameplay wise, at least in the story, we do have to hurry up to help Anna finding the medicine. Alyosha and Artyom set out to explore Taiga by themselves, but the track can't hold us, so we fall into the water and get rescued by a native of these parts, Olga. Exploring Taiga is really pretty and sad, seeing all the houses burned down and even a school being abandoned. Inside the school you can actually find a recording of a teacher explaining he lost all hope of getting any help from the outside, but is quite sure that they will survive if it comes to war.
And Tusha aren't coming back either. The dam workers told they'd give them the lift to the city, but I should have used my authority to stop them from trying. But back then, I still harbored hopes for evacuation too. Vain hopes, as I understand now, for what evacuation could we expect if there's only static on air? Help is not coming.
And wouldn't you know, the pirates and the tribals here are actually the children from the school and got trained by the teacher on how to survive and behave. This is really cool, as you can see them recite the code that the teacher taught them and they strictly follow it. They will still become hostile and try to shoot you, but can you really blame them? To them, you're just an outsider who wants to pillage their home and maybe even kill them. They don't know what your story or what your intentions are. They're just trying to protect themselves, as they had bad encounters with outsiders before. It's also interesting seeing the consequences of the code the teacher taught them, because he had not bullying girls, defending yourself and trying to survive. Those are like the three strict rules, but not everyone agrees about the code. Some people think it's better to attack a potential threat instead of defending themselves, because in a way attacking is defending yourself before the threat even happens. Going even deeper, trying to find Alyosha, we get trapped and get introduced to the big boy of the game, the master, or as I like to call him, the Red Dead Redemption 2 bear. Avoiding the bandits and going to a church, we meet Olga, who explains to us that she helped Alyosha get to the dam where Miller wants us to regroup at. If you stay with her, she opens up a bit more about herself and the history of the cult or gang or whatever you want to call them. She explains how they came to respect the teacher and how he tried to make them as good as possible with following the rules of just defending yourself, not bullying the girls, and just being good overall. There was an internal struggle with them, as they had a hard attack with some bandits and they went out to get revenge on them, but going inside the camp, a guy named Roman slaughtered them like animals. This took a toll on the teacher, as he thought he did the right thing by them, but seeing his student Roman like this questioned his mindset, which led to him isolating himself in the church. After a while, some of the students would come to visit him from time to time, mostly girls, and after some time he decided enough was enough and killed himself, and kind of lefting the reins to Olga to keep the gang in check. I do really like Taiga, but one of the problems I have with it is that it feels too linear. It's still an open world map where you can explore, but not to the same extent as Volga or Caspian. The next area is a bit more open-ended, but it still sucks having the first two areas being kind of limiting of just following a single path. I said that I like that Artyom doesn't talk, but the problem here is that Anna and Miller is trying to reach out to us. We can hear them, but we can't respond to them. There is a line later on saying that there's some static, but if we can hear them, why just not call it in? Like Alyosha called it in, but we can't. Going further, we meet the Admiral, who is sort of a neutral guy between the gangs and is quite insane, literally talking to dead bodies, and is ecstatic that Artyom is here, despite him thinking that Artyom is abandoned. Even though the Admiral is a psychopath, I still sat with him the whole time since nobody really visits him, and he even references Kratos, which is a fucking plus point in my book.
Sorry, Admiral.
Do not be sorry.
Be better.
Be better.
Just so good seeing the roads here being fully visible compared to Moscow where they were covered in snow. I don't know, it's just really beautiful seeing the roads, the different cars, even the bridges being covered and like destroyed. It's really beautiful. After the hard journey, we finally meet Alyosha and tells us that nobody can really live in this place as there is radiation here and the dam holding the whole place together is about to collapse. Oh, and silly me, the bear attacks us again but is quickly handled by Artyom, and before going, Olga tells Alyosha that she does like him but she can't follow them as she needs to lead her people. Throughout the game, the characters say that Alyosha is a girl man and like he finally found the one woman, and even later on the train you can see him radioing in on Olga like he's actually concerned because he's like the fuckboy of the Spartans and he finally found the one true love. It does feel rushed at times because we don't know the time perspective, because we have the day and night cycle now we can sleep, so technically we could be in Taiga for days where Alyosha and Olga build a relationship, but gameplay wise we've just been here for a couple of hours and they're already madly in love. I do love this game, but it does have the same problems as the first two, being just too short. Even though Exodus is a massive game and you can spend hours and hours on top of it, it still feels like sometimes the story is short even though you are doing the side quests, and it feels a little bit rushed together. Being back at the Aurora is depressing. Anna's state has gotten worse and she looks like she doesn't have long to live. It's really sad seeing Anna like this and being sure that Artyom will save her, but she doesn't want him or her dad to worry about her. And what's sadder is that the girl from Volga, Nastya, is worried about having the same sickness as Anna and is just crying there.
Why are you crying then?
I'm afraid.
Afraid? What of?
I have this cough. What if it's like Aunt Anna's?
Working with the gang, we learned that Katya's village contains the medicine, is probably highly radioactive, and we decide that only Miller and Artyom will go as she's his daughter and Artyom's wife. Tokarev, one of the Spartans, built 2 suits to withstand the radiation, but we only have a couple of hours to do so, so we need to make it quickly. Getting to the Dead Sea, it's empty and depressing. The crew needs a snowplow for the train while Artyom and Miller head out to find the medicine. Also love this scene where Miller and Artyom share a handshake before heading out, and later on in this level, I don't know, it's just something that shows more affection towards the both of them. Before heading out, we get the option to visit Anna and just sit next to her. It might be the last time we see her as this is an incredibly hard mission and I just love stuff like this. This chapter of the game is almost Miller's moment as we spend the last level with him and build him even more as a character. We use the car from Caspian that's padded with lead now to withstand the radiation, but we cover so little distance by car because it's almost impossible to move around as there is so much radiation, cars, and worst of all, there is a lot of snow here. I've said before that my favorite aspect of Last Light and 2033 was the segments with us being in towns and exploring them, but the Dead City is just so much more beautiful with having these huge buildings and big roads. Moscow is big, but I don't know, it just feels like Dead City is bigger somehow, and looking at the map, it's really cool seeing just how big the city is. We eventually get to the metro, and like Miller says, we are in our element now as this metro is almost identical to the same one in Moscow. It's really haunting going into the metro and seeing all the dead people, either in cages or just dead people who wanted help. There's even a small segment later on where the military actually shot at the metro, killing hundreds of innocent people, and for nothing, because essentially they all died in the end. I feel there was a missed opportunity here to explain a bit further why the military shut off the exit for the people. Was it because there wasn't enough space for everybody? Was it not enough resources to maintain so many people? I know they explained some of the dead bodies later on into the DLC, but some of the people were here before the war. The flashback was before the war, so it didn't really make sense. Going through the tunnels, we spot a kid that runs away from us, and catching up to him, we learn that he's a soldier of sorts and bring us to his superior officer. In his hideout, he tells us that his dad is the officer and he went out on a mission 3 weeks ago but hasn't contacted Kirill, his son, yet. Miller spots similar looking maps that we found in Caspian, and Kirill tells him that his dad found some maps containing areas without radiation, so we have a new plan for for Miller to get the map and Artyom needs to get the medicine alone in the Institute. And if you're wondering why they have an extra map when they already have a map containing the area, Taiga was actually the location that was supposedly radiation free, but as we learned there was radiation there and the dam didn't hold up, so they couldn't live there. Before going out, Kirill gives us a Rad-X each that we can use if the radiation gets too much, and it's really impressive for this kid to survive 3 weeks alone without his dad, even though there's mutants rolling around and all kinds of dangers. The only segment I don't like in this chapter is the one where you go through the infested tunnel on your boat and you have these centipede looking creatures that just spit at you. And because it takes so long to get out of the boat, by the time you want to shoot them, they're already gone and you already have to use a medkit. Like, it's fucking dog shit. Pushing to the Institute, we get more radiation and we start to see things like in Moscow, and even Miller is starting to see things. What's interesting to me is that I have a game theory that all the vision Artyom experienced in Moscow might have been from the radiation, but I think it's a boring excuse, so I'm gonna make my theory invalid now. On the way to the Institute, we get a surprise visit from our dear friend the Dark One, who's watching over us before entering, and this had some players speculating that they had an impact on their story or Artyom's outcome, but I doubt it. I think it's more of a nod to let the players know that they're still out, or it just might be the Dark One checking up on Artyom as they're sort of friends. Could fit with my unfavorite with Artyom just seeing things because he's radiated now, but what do I know. Going to the Institute, we get ambushed by a radiated gorilla who might be the scariest monster in the entire franchise. The sound design is perfect in this game, and hearing this gorilla just stomp around and sniffing you out because he's blind is really terrifying. Trying to get the medicine, we get a bunch of visions of Artyom imagining dead people as Anna, just showing us how determined he is to save her even though he's almost dying. We also try something new here because you have the option to just sneak past the gorillas or you can kill them. I chose to sneak past them, but there's glass shards everywhere, and I liked it at first, but it seems quite inconsistent because even though you're not stepping onto it, you can still make noise, like getting the medicine and barely surviving the gorilla attack. We get rescued by Miller, where he gives us his Rad-X and tries to take us away, but when we wake up in the car, Miller is asleep, as Kirill says. Pushing forward with the car, we get to the train tracks but pass out before the train can arrive. Waking up again, we check on Miller's body again, as we don't know if we were just hallucinating his death or not. Unfortunately, he really died of radiation poisoning and is gone. The crew come to our rescue and cut to a slow motion shot, much as like the previous games. This is where all your choices you have made throughout the game and how you played the game reflect the ending. If you didn't kill any cultists in Volga, and the leader gives you a passage without any issues, but if you did, no one is left to hold the bridge, so Idiot holds it for you while you leave him behind. In Caspian, if you didn't help any of the slaves and kill them, Damir feels as he needs to help his people, and this is his war as well. In Taiga, if you kill the students, Olga holds a resentment towards you and Ilyosha and shoots him because you're just like the rest of the bandits and proven their point. Having the entire crew on the train is important, as in the beginning of the game we need to get unradiated blood to actually recover from the radiation. It's really heartbreaking seeing everyone talk to Artyom to hold on and he's barely clinging back to life. This is embarrassing to admit since I am of the male gender, but the next part made me cry the first time I played this game, and yes, I did shed a tear yet again replaying the game. I won't do the cutscene justice by explaining it, so I'll just let it play.
Let's go to the summit. Artyom, Lake Baikal. Makes you believe real life is possible. Not the petty rat race we had back in the metro. I just have to say, you were right, Artyom. Right for wanting to get us out, bring us here. And I, the old fool, I was simply afraid. Afraid of life, as I see now. This world is worth giving everything up for, Artyom. You were always ready, and I was too attached to my position in the rat race. I'm sorry. Sorry for what happened to Anna. Sorry for blaming you. Had I not pumped everyone up about the occupying forces, she'd never have fallen there.
Artyom, I beg you, don't die. Stay with me, please. I don't want a life if you're not a part of it. Can you hear me? Look at me, Artyom. Look at me, please.
Yes, about Anna. You will have to look out for her, now that I can't anymore. I don't care if you go to that ocean. Just stay with her.
I'm keeping her out. She can barely stand herself, but she's ready to give all her blood to him. At least the medicine helped. It's a miracle.
I have a daughter, but I also wanted a son. A really stubborn one, just like me. Like you. I really like this place. It's so clean. I'd like to stay here forever. Could you arrange that for me? And the most important thing, my time's up, Artyom. It's your turn now. Step up, lead them. Just remember that I created the order to save people. All people, Artyom. Don't forget that. Because I somehow did. Goodbye, Commander. Time to wake up. Come on. Rise and shine, son.
I am proud to say that it took me 2 games, but I finally got the good ending for Metro, where the crew gives a small memorial to Miller as they have found a spot to settle. But if you got the bad ending, then you don't have people to give you blood for the radiation, so it leads up with Artyom dying. Artyom is stuck on a train, almost like hell, where we meet a familiar figure from the last game, Khan. He tells Artyom that he's disappointed that he didn't learn anything from his past experiences, and that he thought he was better than the bandits in the Metro. Miller is also in this hellscape, and it just shows that Artyom's actions have consequences for the rest of the people, such as Miller. A lot of people are saying that Miller is not the same character from the books, as he's drastically different there, being more mean and harsh, and to that I have to say, shut the fuck up and enjoy this version of Miller. This is why Miller is my favorite character, and I couldn't talk about him earlier, as his death is a huge factor in that. From being almost a standard general in the last games to being this father figure for almost everyone, and especially Artyom. He held resentment toward Artyom and never truly saw him for the man he was, constantly bullying him and blaming everything onto him, but he did it to mold him into a stronger character and person. Anna asks herself what brings happiness to Miller, and the answer to that is that it's her and Artyom, the crew. He knew his time was up, but he cares deeply for Anna and Artyom and would have done anything to keep them secured, which he showed right until the end. One huge factor to Miller and Artyom is the little boy they meet in the city, as it reminds Artyom what a young kid he was before the bombs fell, but also reminding Miller of his own daughter. This is someone's kid, just like Anna is to Miller. Then Miller talking to Artyom like his son and giving him the reins to take over the Spartans is just a tear-dropping moment. I do think Miller was talking to Artyom and it wasn't him dreaming. If the Dark Ones could have communicated with him before, I think there's an afterlife that Artyom was in briefly. The ending cutscene communicates how Artyom sees Miller, as well as he envisions himself as a small kid being taken away by his father to the dream spot they've been looking for. Miller always wanted to have a son, as stubborn as him, and he got one, Artyom. Even before the death, there was no hesitation in his mind to give Artyom his Radax, knowing he most likely won't survive. He always wanted to meet his grandson or granddaughter, but he knew he had to sacrifice everything, his life for Artyom and Anna, to live happily after, and just wow. It might feel as I'm really overanalyzing this character, but this is what I interpreted from his dialogue and seeing his actions reflected. He never shows emotion as he's a general, but he still shows signs that he really cares about Anna and Artyom in his own way. The DLC even further expands the ending and Miller as a character and how the journey has changed his point of view that he had back in the Metro. I really do want to give credit for Jameson Price, as he's an American actor from Florida, and the voice he has for Miller is just so good and really makes him more alive as a character. That really goes for the rest of the voice acting guys as well and girls, because everybody blows it out of the park, especially the Reddit Baron and Caspian. I did the same thing I did in the Control video, and I gambled my money away, and I have all the DLC for Exodus, so strap yourselves in as I'm gonna talk about the DLC. The two colonels? Colonel? I'm just gonna say Colonel. The Two Colonels is a DLC that takes place 1 year, 6 months and 1 month before the Aurora arrives to the Dead City, and follows both Miller finding the map in the ending and following Kirill's dad. It's a really good DLC that is fairly short, but is just mainly here to build more character to the world and Miller. It starts off with Miller talking to himself on how this whole journey has changed his perspective on life and how he is here because of Anna. Then we switch to the perspective of Colonel Klepnikov 1 year before the Aurora arrives. He's being tasked with cleaning some of the goo off the walls, and you get a new weapon in this DLC being the flamethrower, and I'm not a super fan of it, but it's fine. What's more bizarre is playing a character in the Metro franchise that is able to respond to people's statements.
Ah, cut that. Sweep up duty. Sure. On behalf of Oscom, I'm issuing an official commendation.
We return to base that is really similar to Moscow, with all the soldiers and citizens walking about. Klepnikov meets with his general, who informs him that they want to evacuate pretty soon as they don't have enough Radax to supply everybody, and that they sent men to receive a map containing the information of where they can live. The general says that we need to keep it between ourselves, as if people would know there would be chaos. We meet with Kirill and celebrate New Year's Eve with everybody, and it's a really wholesome moment, like just the rest of the game. We cut back to Miller as he's exploring the area we're just in, and this happens throughout the DLC as we play a segment of Klepnikov, then we cut to Miller being there. It's 6 months before the Aurora arrives now, and things aren't looking too bright for the people as they're growing more and more aggressive and unwary as the Radax is slowly running out. Getting back to Kirill, they talk about how the soldiers are supposed to protect the people when they're stealing from them and beat them up. Klepnikov says that they need to take from the people who have a lot of Radax, as if the rich were to hoard all the green stuff there would not be enough Radax for everybody. We cut back again to Miller progressing further, and we return to just 3 months before the Aurora arrives, and it's a shit show. Klepnikov is preparing for an assault as the people of the metro have rebelled against the soldiers and there is a war. The excuse both of the soldiers and Klepnikov have to gun down citizens is that it's either them or us. I really like this aspect of the DLC, even though it is short and goes by way too fast, having the contrast of how people are together when things are going well, but as soon as that comfort dies down we go back to our animal instincts. The people just want the Radax and will stop at nothing to get it, so they rebelled against the soldiers and are willing to kill them to get it. We try to hold off the rebels as much as we can, but they overwhelm us and throw gas grenades at us, but we're luckily rescued by this brave man that shortly dies after trying to report to the general. Listening in, we hear the general says that the evacuation has already started, and confused we confront them only to learn that there was already an evacuation but only for the higher ups, no one else. The general tries to call in a rescue for him to evacuate, but even the higher ups fucked him over by starting early, but he had a backup plan where his son would blow them up. Unfortunately his son died, so having no other reason to live, as everything is gonna crash either way, he commits suicide.
So long, Slava.
Kirill finds us and we tell him that none of the shit we said before really matters, as the government is corrupt and they lied to us, so we need to stand for ourselves. Cutting back to the last segment of the DLC, we see Miller pushing towards the bunker and we go back to Klepnikov 1 month before the Aurora arrives. Before heading to the bunker, we call our son to tell him we love him and continue on our journey. Getting inside, we need to turn on the power in order to get inside, but doing so we get a bunch of monsters trying to attack us, and I find this really cool as I really felt I was standing on my ground waiting eagerly for the door to open, like I was scared shitless and stressed out. Being in the next room, we get another surprise visit from the blind gorilla as it attacks Klepnikov, pushing him down to the lowest level. Luckily he put us near the map, but being heavily radiated we don't have enough time to take the Radax, so we push forward. Getting inside the room we are safe until the blind gorilla grabs our leg and breaks the only Radax we had with us. Having the map but being really tired, Klepnikov takes a seat to rest for a bit, calling out to his son and slowly fading to black.
Kirill, I'm coming back. I just need a tiny bit of rest. I'm just so tired.
The door opens with light behind it as Miller is coming out and talking to Klepnikov, and again I would do the cutscene dirty if I explain it, so I'll just let it play out.
My life has a real purpose for a change. All because I can finally look the truth in the eye. I think you understand. Thank you for the maps. Don't think it was all in vain. You saved us all. And Kirill? I'll give him this watch and make sure he gets out of this hellhole. You have my word. Well, it's time. Farewell, Colonel Klepnikov. Rest easy. Artyom, stay with me. Hold on, son.
Some people might find it weird that Miller talks to a dead guy, but I think it works perfectly for his character. He's a devoted colonel and has a high respect for the military people, and both of them have shared similar journeys. I really like this DLC as it focuses more on Miller and makes me love him even more as a character. The similarities between Klepnikov and Miller is really cool, and the two stories play out really well together. I would count this DLC as more of a side mission to the main game, as it fills us in on what happened to the ending and what drove Miller to save the Rad-X. The only real bad thing I have to say about the DLC is just it's super sad and really short. Sam's story picks up right after the main game's ending, as Sam is really happy for the crew, but he longs for his family in America, as he has hope now that there is a chance they survived. If the Spartans were able to find a suitable place to call home, he can find his family. He says it was really hard to leave the crew behind, as they're practically his family at this point from all the time he spent with them, but this is just something he has to do. Sam takes the car, trying to cover as much ground as possible, but is forced to go on foot later on, which leads him eventually to Vladivostok. Really weird seeing this again, but I greatly appreciate that Sam is a fully voiced character that actually responds to comments about him. Exploring the area, we hear some gunshots and investigate, only to see some bandits attack a guy called the Captain. Helping them, we get attacked again, so we skedaddle out of there, but not before getting attacked by the Batwing. And no, I'm not making this up, there is a creature named the Batwing, which makes technically my favorite hero canon in one of my favorite games. Crashing down, we push forwards towards the Captain, we get ambushed by bandits, and I really like this scene as it shows truly what a Spartan is capable of, but also the fight feels realistic as Sam takes multiple hits from the fight and doesn't win it since it's a 1v4. Getting captured by them, they want us to take us to the leader that is surprisingly happy about Sam being an American. They take us to their submarine the Captain mentioned before, and we get introduced to the second American of the franchise, Tom, and his right hand man, Klim. I didn't really understand Tom's excitement about Sam being an American, but then I thought, to be fair, I think everyone would be happy to meet someone from the same country as them in a post-apocalyptic world. The submarine we're on belonged to the Captain at one point, but gave it up to Tom. What the Captain didn't know is that Tom believed that there should be only one power and that other people should obey him and only him, so he left him and kept hiding from him. The problem for Tom is that the submarine is fully operational, but it needs fuel for the reactor, that only the Captain knows how to do it and where the fuel is. Tom offers Sam safe passage to San Diego in order to meet his dad if he gets the Captain on the submarine, and with no other way he accepts. This DLC is bigger than the two colonels and even has new guns in it. Sam practically plays the same as Artyom, having a backpack and the watch, which makes sense since they're both Spartans. The new guns here is the Galil and a Colt 1945 in the beginning, which I find really cool since they have a big operation going on here and they're a gun trader, so it makes sense that they have better guns compared to the bandits and in the Metro games. Funny thing, out of nowhere the game crashed on me and I have no clue. The game has been running really smooth all the way through and only crashed on this DLC. I think the game is trying to tell me something.
Oh, hold on, my bad. My bad, I was wiping some shit off, pause.
Exiting narrator.
The biggest problem I have with the DLC is the amount of time it has crashed on me. As I was playing, I encountered up to 5 to 6 crashes on random moments that didn't make sense. I couldn't fix this, as the base game and the other DLC just ran fine. It was only this DLC that seems to have more technical issues. Sam's story has more flexibility, as you can have an area to explore being near a dock. It's an interesting location yet again, and not being in the Metro and actually in an open world. If 4A Games and Deep Silver want to make another Metro game, I can't even imagine how big and open that game would be. We go to one of the hideouts that the Captain uses, and wouldn't you know, he's actually there. It was a pleasant surprise for me, as I thought the DLC would resolve around us trying to find the Captain in his different safe houses. Meeting with him, we try to negotiate with him, and to our surprise, he actually wants to go through the deal. To close it off, we drink together and we get a really funny cutscene with Sam and the Captain just getting drunk as fuck and beating this monster to death and just talking with them. Good stuff. Yet again, it's these human moments in the Metro games that really sell them for me. Nothing is happening. It's just a cutscene of people just being humans, like they're just chilling and drinking. It's a human moment. Waking up with the biggest hangover ever, the Captain tells us where the fuel is, but it's heavily radioactive, so we need a suit from the fire department in order to enter that area. Going there, we get ambushed by some raiders that said I killed their leader. So after meeting the Captain the first time, there's a sniper targeting him, and being the Spartan we are, we go towards him with no problem. Finally catching up to him, I get a prompt to either spare him or kill him. Me, being the smartass I am, think the knife is to kill and the fist is to knock him out, so I picked the fist, but apparently I killed him. I didn't really understand this, but whatever. Meeting some of Tom's scouts that tell us where some of the gangs are located and we can find some loot, such as the characters did in the base game. One thing I really do like about the DLC is how the gangs are living lives. I know it was also like that in the base game, but I don't know, it was just kind of calming seeing these bandits watching a movie and like, oh, this is so amazing when they're watching a movie that's like literally 5 seconds long. Going to the fire department, we get the suits and call it into the captain and meet up with him. Oh yeah, the game actually has radios now, since you know the main character can actually respond and talk. We go to the bunker and encounter the most annoying enemy ever, the electric spider. They basically charge up their web and shut down everything, and for you to get the power back on, you need to kill them. Simple, right? No, because the spiders from the base game that get damaged by the flashlight are here, and the electric spider, when it comes at you, you can't do shit because you don't have a light source. You only have your lighter, but it doesn't do anything against them. It would have been fine if they didn't have so much health and just run around everywhere, making it really hard to kill them. Putting the fuel on the captain's boat, we meet with him and call Tom to tell him that we're on our way, and getting there, the captain reveals his grand plan. He's been fighting with Tom for years and can't really do anything against him, as he never really got the opportunity, but with Sam here now, he gives him the detonator and tells him to think about it. Because if Tom has a submarine, he can start another war if he wants to. He has the manpower and the weapon for it. I really like this, as the captain isn't threatening Sam or anything, he's just asking him to think about it. The scene would have been ruined if the captain were like threatening Sam, like, oh, if you don't do it, I'll fucking kill you or I'll blow everyone up. Like, he's just tired of fighting all these years with Tom, and he's like, just please think about it. The least you can do, just think about it. Meeting with Tom, something bad happens as Klim betrays Tom because he found out that Tom wanted to backstab him, so it's like a double cross backstab or whatever. This is the shooty section of the DLC, much like the cannibal camp in the base game, and it's just as fun here. You have these armed enemies trying to kill you, and you just show them truly what a Spartan is capable of again. Pushing through, we get to Klim and hit him with the 1-2 and go to the bridge, and here's where you can make a choice. You can either blow up the submarine or leave it. If you leave it, you actually do get a ticket to America and tag along with Tom without any hiccups, but you get a bitter dialogue from Sam as he thinks Tom can't really start a war as there isn't anyone left to bomb. The ending where you bomb the submarine, Sam is more sad as he lost his only ticket way home, but he did the right thing. The thing he's been doing for 20 years now, stopping another war. I feel as both endings are a bit of a mixed bag, because no matter which ending you picked, you always felt like you picked the wrong one. I've seen people debate about the ending and which one is the canon one, and I honestly think blowing up the submarine is the canon one. I don't think Sam would have let Tom have a nuclear weapon just to meet his dad again, even how much he hopes to do so. He spent 20 years with the Spartans and came to love Russia even though he's not from here. He has seen the terror and what power can do to people, so in my humble gamer opinion, I think he would have blown up the submarine. It's not like all hope is lost in the ending, as he still can find a way to America. It's kinda implied that Sam agrees with the captain to blow up the submarine, as when he gives him the detonator, Sam responds that he won't let him down, like kinda subtly saying that he does agree that the submarine needs to be taken out in some way. Damn, this video is long. This is by far one of my longest videos on the channel, and I don't regret it being on Exodus. Exodus is a really amazing game. It has amazing visuals and an incredible story. If you haven't played it yet for some reason, you should do so now. Even though I went deep into everything that's in the game, you can still play it and make your own way in the game. The choices I made throughout my playthrough might not be the choices you wanted to make, like me taking Damir along with me, when in all honesty I think it would have been better leaving him behind for his sake, as it could be his own journey, much like Sam. You can tell that this game was made with love, as all the characters are really well written and makes you feel for them. The game also really immerses you into the world and gameplay, and it's something not a lot of games can do. Even though Stalker and other games in this genre are trying to capture that feeling, no other games does it better than Exodus. Exodus is a perfect example of a game well done and what happens when the developers actually care about the game they're making. One of the major factors why people don't really get into it is because they think it's a shooting game in a post-apocalyptic world where you can kill everybody without consequences. Then later on they get upset because they got the bad ending, and I know there's people like that because I was one of them in Metro 2033. It wasn't until I understood this story and actually thought about what I was doing that I realized that the game wants to tell me something else entirely, not just being about shooting and killing people. Stalker fits more into that category, with you being able to salvage materials and kill people without consequences, but not Metro. Metro focuses more on the story, characters, and the world as a whole, as they want you to take a part in it to understand it. I'm probably gonna come back to Exodus and try to get all the achievements and finding all the cool Easter eggs because it's fun and the game gives me a vibe no other game gives me really. I just want to say quickly that there's been a lot of people on Metro content commenting that how different the games are compared to the books, and to that I have to say it literally says when you boot up the game that the games are inspired by the books. It's not an exact replica, it says inspired by. I think that's the beauty beauty with fantasy media and media overall, where people can see an aspect that appeals to them, and I think that's what the developer saw in the books and went along with it to make this game franchise. Their vision of the Metro franchise is really different from the books, but it still holds its own ground strongly. Thank you so much if you made it through the end of the video. I'm already working on the next video on Alan Wake 2, so hopefully that will be up within a reasonable time. If you liked the video, leave a comment, or maybe you disagree with my view on the game, so let me know what you disagree on. Thank you yet again for the support on all the recent videos, and take care everybody.
We better not stay outside for too long. Hold on. No sleeping, soldier. No sleeping now. I did find you after all. Don't know how. Stay with me, Artyom.
Bye, Commander. Time to wake up. Come on. Rise and shine, son.